On today's episode of Delusions of Automotive Grandeur, Steven fears for his life in an RX-7, Brent talks about a 99 Cavalier with racing stripes, and Charlie, he wants to make sure his sound levels are good. Strap in, it's time for DAG Show.
This is Delusions of Automotive Grandeur. For all of you watching, I guess the camera's there, and we switched to video now, and we're just going to give it a shot like this. We're all, like as Brent was saying a little bit ago, we're all socially distanced and hanging in there. And if you've endured any of the podcasts, you kind of know some things about us, but we might as well, since this is a new way to do things with video and everything, sort of start over and sort of lay it out there. Did any of y'all want to go first to talk about?
I was just going to add in that there will be an audio portion of this as well, going up on Spotify and iTunes. We have both been approved for both overall, so
for now, until they hear it, and then they're gonna be like,
exactly, until they're like, nah.
Wherever you get all your podcast needs fulfilled.
So yeah,
we're all about fulfilling people's needs.
I figure iTunes and Spotify are going to be your main two, and I can put up a link to download as well if you want to go that way. But
perfect.
Those are the main two, and then of course video is going to be on YouTube.
Yep.
So
cool. So Brent, why don't you go first, Brent? Tell us about like what cars you've got, and sort of how you sort of got into cars, and just what's the deal with you, man?
The year was 1985. Wait, I wasn't even born yet. No, I would say when I was 16 overall, got my first car, got my license all at the same time, basically. And I had a 1999 Chevy Cavalier.
Have stripes?
It was not fun. I did put stripes on it.
Good man. Good man.
I didn't know that. I guessed, everyone.
I did put stripes on it, so there's that. Let's see. I'll just go through it. I didn't really want the Cavalier, being from upstate New York and having like 130 inches of snow every year and so on. It was not fun. So I think it was like February timeframe of the first year having the car. Ended up hitting a snowdrift in the middle of the road, basically, and it just took me right into the shoulder. And
you were doing a Scandi flick?
No.
Okay.
It was on a straight line overall too. That's the worst part. Okay. And took me straight into the snowbank, basically, and got me so stuck. My dad's truck couldn't even get me out.
Oh wow.
That lip off oversteer will get you every time.
Yeah. So yeah, my dad and I were sitting there in the truck waiting for the tow truck to show up, and basically I sat there and I looked over him. I'm like, car's for sale. I'm getting a Subaru. So I think it was 2 months later, I was at work one day and my parents called. They're like, we found a car for you. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to expect here, but I'll go with it. So I went out and test drove it, looked at it. I'm like, it's okay. When I got home that night, though, that's when everything changed.
I was gonna make a joke about things. Never mind.
I wasn't a big fan of it at first, but I found a website called rs25.org, or is it .com now? I forget. I haven't been on there in forever, but I found that and just fell in love with the Subaru Impreza 2.5 RS back before the WRX came out in the US. It's basically the footage that you see of Colin McRae driving, it's that style car. The 22B is, you know, basically that car, just wide body, so on and so forth. And once I saw what everybody was doing to the car and everything else, I just fell in love, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah, yes, please
Yes.
give me more cars.
Yes, I'll take it. And you know, the first day that I actually had the car on the road and I drove it more or less. It was for my high school graduation.
Oh wow, cool.
So it has a little bit of meaning to it, and still to this day, 12 years later, 13.
That makes you really
Um,
old, by the way.
13 years
Right.
now. I still have the car overall. It might be sitting in a barn needing some stuff, but there's plans for it in the future for sure. Um, you know, I ended up going to school in DC overall and didn't need a car. There, well, could have used a car, but I wasn't able to, more or less. Um, and moved to New York after that as well. Same thing, didn't need a car. When I moved back down to DC the second time after, I actually looked at a Mini Cooper S at one point, test drove it. It was okay. It was a little bit more than what I would have probably paid for it. So I just kind of brushed it off and kept going with it, you know, just walking to work and whatnot. And then,
You didn't skip to work?
no,
What,
no,
and whistle?
Uphill both ways.
or I took the bus. All right.
I can just see you skipping and whistling to work in New York somewhere, man. Sorry, go
No,
ahead.
this was back in DC at this
Oh,
point.
DC, sorry. That's better.
Um, so yeah, the dealership closest to me, there was a couple BMWs on my list too, a 3 Series, 325 and a 135. 135 was way out of my price range anyways, and it had turbo issues, so I'm like, no, no way. The 128, or no, 220. I I hate BMW where they switched everything up.
I can't think of
The
any other companies that have
328,
numerical
I
code
know.
issues. But
The
sorry, go ahead.
328, it was okay, but it was a boat. It just was way too big. Hated it.
Yeah.
It was just way too big for a coupe overall on that order with no power at all. And then an Audi A4 came up. I'm like, okay. And I think the first time it came out to Cars and Coffee for Charlottesville, I did have that, and I believe I met you, Charlie, when I was there. So I had that for about a year again, and then I got sick and tired of it because I had some issues, and ended up trading it in for a Subaru BRZ.
Never heard of Audis having issues.
No, never. No Volkswagen brand has issues.
No, it's
Um,
it's designed that way. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, so I had the BRZ for how long? 5 years? No, 4 years overall. Basically full bolt-on suspension, done, you know, that side of things overall. And then now moved out to LA. And the car was a little bit too low for some of the roads out here if you weren't careful. So I ended up getting a Mini Cooper S. That's what we currently drive out here now.
nice.
So yeah, so have the Mini Cooper S and a 2000 Subaru 2.5 RS as well.
What color is the
So,
Subaru?
Blue Ridge Pearl.
That's the color, right?
It's the dark blue metallic color.
Okay. I'm trying to remember how.
It's it's not rally blue that everybody knows of.
Okay.
Um,
I'm okay with dark blue cars. They're all right.
it's an amazing color. Truthfully, I'm keeping it that color regardless
Yeah.
of what I do. It's got a really cool flake to it where it has almost like a purplish hint to it. So, you know, at certain times it might actually look purple compared to like a dark blue, but it's right out there. I love it.
Nice.
So yeah, let's go on to
Who's
Charlie.
next? All right. And just for sound check, good on levels. So cool. Yeah. So I only got into it kind of late in life, not a forever thing, but I've always been into like do it yourself projects and things like that. Like I remember like an early like when I was 16, like I got the keys to my mom's like Honda Accord EX, whatever, and ended up like me and my dad like completely gutting it, doing interior carpet and doing a head unit and like just keeping it simple. But you know, the car had already been like the car me and my brother like were driven to and from places, and like just completely destroyed the interior of that car. Like we drove up and down the East Coast with it. So I had plenty of miles, and it was like, so I, you know, kind of got started that way, getting into automotive pursuits that way. My dad was always also like a home like shade tree mechanic. He's an electrician by trade, and he was always tinkering with like, I think he actually has some background in like customized vans because he's of that era.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so he's like, I'm fairly certain he's like installed like shag carpet and like port windows and
little tassels.
Oh, I'm sure of it. Like, I mean, he's got stories, and it's just a challenge to get all of them out of him. But yeah, so like I remember we had the van like way back in the day with the carpet inside and the no seats, no seat belts, and the big port windows to watch traffic go by. But yeah, like he was always wrenching on that, or then he got a truck and he was wrenching on that, and then we had like between me, my brother, and my mom had a fleet of various Honda Civics or Accords, and but yeah, then I came out to went to college, drove the Honda through college, mostly just keep it running, and then that car had a kind of a miserable end of life the last few years, but it was just an old car at that point, so it's kind of whatever. Like drove the wheel off of it due to some improperly installed lug nuts and things like that from a local shop. That was
did you actually have the thing where you're driving and you see the wheel going along? You're like, whose wheel is that? Like,
oh yeah, I definitely had the Bugs Bunny moment. It was more of a like, a lot of noise and then suddenly no noise. And like it's that second of no noise where you're like, what's gonna happen next? Like what just finally
calamity.
I definitely had that on a go-kart once.
Yeah, you like look over and the wheel's like still rolling and you're like, double taking.
Yep.
But yeah, somewhere on 64 westbound in between Richmond and Charlottesville, there's might be a Honda Accord wheel.
For hundreds of years it will be there.
God, please, I hope so. That'll be a great contribution. But yeah, so that car got resprayed. I drove it in another 2 weeks, and like this was such a clear like marked end of life for that car that I ended up like rear-ending someone because I was distracted by another vehicle, and it ended up folding the hood in, folding the radiator support. The best part was the car was actually the shop was so shitty about it. They're like, oh yeah, we'll get you covered, we'll respray it. They only resprayed half the car. So it looked like brand new on one side and 20 years old on the other. Just two faces.
It was like side to side, not front to back. Like
yeah, exactly. It's like you could literally look at like driver's side. Oh wow, it's a fresh paint job.
So those are the side. That's the side you took pictures from when you were selling it.
I sold. I don't even think I took a photo of that. I was like, here's like some bad cell phone photos. Like, get mechanic special, $300, come get it. Some guy came. I actually saw it driving around months after that. I was like, I'm so stoked to see this thing still running. It still had all my stickers on it. And of course, I was like a college and post just after college. Like, oh, a sticker in the back of my windshield. And now I'm like, no stickers, please. But yeah, and then I got into Volkswagens. Had one of the notorious dirty diesels, a Jetta 2010. Got into like the TDI Club and Vortex and stuff like that. Doing little mods here and there, tinkering. And then I switched over and got a GTI because that's what I wanted in the first place. And haven't really looked back since, and have done plenty of little and big mods to that. And yeah, it's
Mark 7, right?
Yeah, it's Mark 7 2015. Yeah, it's been fun. I've been a part of those communities and done a little bit of the like tuning boxes and a little bit of those like off the shelf tune stuff and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of my like broad overview of what I've dabbled with.
I don't think I realized that you had such a lineage with a Honda.
Yeah, we had like a 3 Honda household at one point. It was I actually remember talking my mom into looking at the was it 2004 Honda Civic with the hybrid. It was like maybe the second year they got the hybrid.
Early one, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, Priuses were like becoming big, and I was like, you want a Honda, you want a hybrid, like go for it. And that was I think my first experience with the CVTs and how awful those are. Oh gosh. Especially those early ones. Had to like, there's so much like weird maintenance stuff that like I remember the transmission on it was never smooth. Like after the first like 50,000 miles, it just clunked into whenever you were trying to get into a gear. Which like also was like, wait, it's supposed to be a CVT of some sort. Like, why
am I sensing shift points?
Yeah, I shouldn't like feel that like. Yeah, it was a rough. It's definitely one of those ones of like, oh, like started putting in my mind of like, I will never own that Honda or a similar like generation. I was like, started becoming a little more wary. So I got into a bigger troublemaker with a Volkswagen. So.
Cool. Yeah. Well, hi, I'm Steven. Party people.
Hello, Steve.
And how's it going, guys?
Hey.
And my background is cars I've had, and how I got into it all is a really simple way to say how I got into it is that my grandfather was a bomber mechanic in World War II. I should say bombers, really just anything with a radial engine that was coming through. He was technically in the Navy. And he's like 18, and because of that, like my entire childhood in visiting him in Northern Ohio, which is a huge car culture as well, was his garage, and I can still smell his garage. Like I can smell it, and stuffed in that garage.
That smell.
It's yes. Can you smell that smell? Sorry, copyrighted. But no, he had a 46 Willys Jeep and a 31 Model A and a 68 Ford Fairlane convertible in sort of an aqua metallic blue. Now, the Model A took him 20 years to restore. He had no money. He got the Amish to like hand sew an interior for it. The Willie's Jeep is beautiful and amazing and glorious, but it's, you know, it's home done. It's, you know, he's a mechanic, so the engine was rebuilt amazingly, but it's brushed paint, you know, and
Yeah.
crudely hand painted Willys in red, you know, over the tan background, and the Ford was just sort of a mess, the convertible, and, you know, but just the idea and having that sort of person that's sort of like an icon for you that you sort of idolize, and that smell of grease, you know. And that plus my Uncle Jim, who also he worked at Ford for like 40 years, and he's just got piles of cars all over the place. So it's just, you just idolize people like that, and it gets in your blood. And my dad has a killer 79 RX-7, which he's had longer than he's had me, and it's still in the family, and that's another sort of contributing factor. So, you know, my first car, which if any of you have endured anyone listening or watching has endured some of the original podcasts, I've got a whole story about it, was you know, a 91 Ford Tempo with genuine Canadian vinyl interior, pretty badass, and it you know, 4-door automatic white gray interior, just, and had a luggage rack. But that was the first car I had, you know, and just the idea of being free and being able to go where you want to go, even if, you know, the car wasn't in my name or anything, and I wasn't going anywhere fast, but, you know, that just, it locks it down. You have all these people you idolize, you know, grandfather, uncle, dad,
Yeah.
and they're into this, and then you have your first taste of actually going out there and doing it. It's just the best. I remember going 45 for the first time, being like, oh my God, you know, it's so fast.
So it sounds like you know, what I'm, you know, and someone correct me if I'm kind of mistaken this synopsis, but I'd say you have like 100% coming from a family of petrol heads. You know, it's kind of been born into it, so to speak.
Yep.
You know, loosely, I was born into it, but not like, you know, my dad has never bought a fun car. He's always bought a van or a truck.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're pretty much all the same. Like, I honestly don't know if my dad like actually tried to like shop around for his truck. Like the last one he bought, I think he literally walked on a lot and was like, give me a truck. And
that one.
Basically he was like, I'm ready to buy today. And that's a whole nother story for another day. That's a funny one. Brent, do you have, you know, it sounded like your passion has kind of been brought forward from your own interests. Is that, do you have, did I?
It's been a mix, I would say.
Okay.
Because my dad's always been into classic cars overall, and growing up until, oh man, I'm just trying to think of how old I was. Probably 13, maybe 14 or so.
Yeah.
We had a 57 Chevy out in the barn, basically.
Cool. Cool.
America. Like, you have a barn and it has a 57 Chevy in it. That's America.
Yeah.
It's required.
And I mean, when I was young, and I would say probably more so before I remember, I do know the car was running and everything, but then I came along. You know what I mean? Where, you know,
Yeah.
It's all Brent's fault.
my dad didn't really have the time to work on everything.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of put on the back burner and just sat there, and then he sold it. And then a little bit other back history. I mean, I've helped out with car shows before, especially a major one up in Syracuse, the Syracuse Nationals, and which is just basically all classic cars from everywhere. Literally, I mean, there will be cars coming from Southern California that will drive over and go to this show. And I mean, you're talking a good probably 10,000 cars usually.
Yeah, that's wild.
And I remember I was helping out at the show, so I kind of snuck my dad in, and we walked around for a little bit when I was, you know, kind of taking a little bit of a break, whatever. And we were walking, and he's like, "That's my car." I'm like, what? And when we left it, or when the guy bought it, it was all white. And then the original coloring of it was red with the white fin on the back more so. But when we had it, it was just all white. And when he saw it, it was back to original, red, white. Everything was basically original. And you could tell he kind of regretted selling the car.
Yeah, seller's remorse is real.
Especially seeing it done overall and what it could have been. And you know, when we saw it, I would say I wasn't into cars all that much. Yeah, I'd play with your Hot Wheels, whatever, but I wasn't really interested, I would say, into working on the car itself. You know, at that point, all of my time was focused on sports, playing sports, you know, all year round, no matter what. So I kind of regret it too, but at the same time, we know it went into really good hands and it got done really well. So is what it is. But you know, there is a little bit of that in the background, but it's my dad's more American cars, I'm more Japanese, that side of things. So there's differences there, but similarities at the same time.
See, my family had the opposite thing happen, Brent, which is my dad held on to that RX-7 much to the ire of my mom, because it has taken up half the garage for 40 years. For everyone watching, it only has like 52,000 miles on it, and it's been in the garage the entire time. It's like in new old stock condition. It's amazing, but
just needs a can of two-stroke to get it rolling.
It probably would, man. It definitely, when you first get it started and the apex seals haven't resealed yet, it's burned some oil, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty, it's like a tank. You know, tanks can do smoke screens. It's like that, basically. But yeah, like, so when
it's like you're permanently, let's say it's like you're permanently dumping a sea foam into your engine.
It gets better every after 5 minutes. It goes away. I don't that little RX-7 in particular, that particular serial number has like the world's most amazing apex seals. They always come back after about 4 or 5 times starting and letting it get up to temperature. It doesn't smoke at all. It's fascinating, you know. But that car played, you know, a lot of fond memories with that. It's part of my childhood and everything. One time I did a face plant, naturally, because I'm an idiot. While my mom was having a garage sale. She'd organized this massive garage sale with like 5 houses and all these people there, and I just wipe out. Somehow I didn't manage to not hurt my face, but I just split my knee like way open. You know, like definitely going to need stitches, kind of thing. And my mom had to like abandon the entire thing to drive me to the doctor, and the only car that was available was the RX-7. And so like the whole time, you know, I'm bleeding everywhere. I've got my stuffed animal next to me or whatever, and like. And I'm kind of crying at the stoplight, you know, and my mom's like, "Are you okay, Steven? You're gonna be fine. It's okay. It's gonna be fine." And I asked her if I was gonna die. I was like a little kid, you know, and she's like, "No, honey." And then she realized that I was talking about her driving because it was a manual, because she was like hopping around. It's a great story of the family, you know, like, oh my God. And so that car has been around, but you know, when it came time to like, you know, the Tempo was the first
miles.
Oh, it's
only some blood on the interior.
Please ignore the stains on the seats. You know, like,
pay no attention.
And on Top Gear, it was like questionable excretions. You know, but anyway. So you know, I actually, the Tempo is what I drove a lot. You know, high school and stuff like that. But I actually learned how to drive on a burgundy red Saab 9000 turbo. And yes, it broke constantly. But then the first car I actually, I had a 99 Beetle, but like the first car that I actually like really was titled in my name and was my car, that I paid for myself, was a 1967 Ford Mustang, which is, it's kind of cool. That's the first car you have as a title, you know, that you titled yourself as an ancient car. And that one was, I had done a lot of studying and I knew how to buy a car that wasn't too rusty, except I was an idiot and I was wrong. And it was actually very rusty. So that one went away. And then the brown Demon, not Dodge Demon, but the money demon, take my money demon Mustang that I have now is sort of my baby. It's a 65 Mustang with a 4-speed and top loader and transmission and her shifter and everything. And it's partially in pieces right now in my garage because I pulled the intake manifold off, and I'm pretty sure I can figure out how to put it back on.
Some say death rides a pale horse, but it sounds like the death of your wallet rides a brown horse.
Yeah, my Mustang, by the way, I'm forgetting that everyone doesn't know this. It's in red primer with black Rust-Oleum Shelby stripes, which are applied at the exact tapering dimension as they should be. And my daily driver is a 2016. I bought it new. It's a 2016 Kona Blue Fiesta ST, which has less than half the displacement of the Mustang, but the same horsepower. And that's me.
And they weigh the same, don't they?
They weigh almost to the pound, you know. And
the wheels are switched around, so it's.
No, but and the last thing I'll say is that, like, I noticed, you know, like Charlie, you started with Honda, you know, with VW, and you know, and Brent, you know, like there's a lot of different types of cars in your history. Like, it's interesting that like none of us are like fully like incredibly loyal to one brand. Like I was raised, like my uncle, you know, the one that worked at Ford and has a union job, he has like 40 cars. And I mean, none of them are show cars or anything, but they're like every brand. Yeah. And, you know, my grandfather's classic cars, they were every brand. And so it's like, I love the fact that those are my influences. Like, you know, introducing myself to all y'all that are watching this is like, I like everything, you know?
To an extent, yes.
I don't like Porsche Panameras.
Disappointed. I think that actually brings up a very good, you kind of touch on something, you know, I think we all appreciate cars, automotive devices, etc. Anything with 4 wheels, 2 wheels, maybe 3, I don't know.
Morgan 3-wheeler, sorry.
I mean, look, keep it weird. I would try it at least once.
One, sign me up.
But yeah, I think you know what we are kind of touching and around is like we generally just like cars, whether it's driving them or just looking at them or thinking of owning them, and like we can appreciate them for a little bit of everything of what they are, and not just see the brand loyalty. I mean, obviously there's some there for. We all have our preferences, right? But
the answer is get one of each.
Yeah,
that's the only logical conclusion.
Coming from cycling stuff, they call that N+1, where N is the number of cars in your garage, and is the question of how many cars should you own at any given moment. It's N+1.
N+1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Or so however sort of much space you could have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Finally got a garage now, but it's filled with lumber. But you know, just so for everyone watching us, so that's sort of an introduction on, you know, like a brief introduction, like our histories and who we are and sort of, you know, what we drive now. And that, you know, we're really excited to, you know, sort of restart this journey, you know, with, you know, our podcast we recorded a while back, the original 7 episodes, but, you know, we're going to start doing video and start doing more content more regularly now. And, you know, I mean, that's just sort of us in a nutshell, you know, like, you know, if you're looking for a place to hang out with people that are just hanging out, you know, we're riding out this COVID thing together distantly, and you don't want to go to a show that only talks about one brand of car or whatever, you know, this is the place to be. You know, we're just people hanging out, trying to get by. And yeah, thanks for coming by.
Just the lay people.
Yeah, well, except for Brent's higher crust.
How am I higher crust?
He holds his synthetic oil for his Mini Cooper with his pinky out when he's going to pour it in, you know. He's not denying it. He's not denying it.
Just shaking his damn head at you.
Yeah.
As usual. Always.
As usual. Yeah.
Always.
So, yeah.
I shake my head at myself. You're going to notice I do that a lot. Oh, God, what did I say?
That is very true.
How do you reel that back in? Just, no. You can't.
It's all over.
If you enjoyed DAG Show, please like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. We are also available on iTunes and Spotify by searching for Delusions of Automotive Grandeur. Thanks again for tuning in, and as always, may the grandeur of your automobiles be delusional.
I think, Brent, a lot of the people that that endured the podcast, the prequels to this, they're going to be disappointed that I don't really look like Fabio or something like.
Yes, they will be very, very disappointed that you don't.
I mean, I'm not talking pre Goose. You got hit by Goose at one point.
I mean, post Goose only improved it, right?
More ruggedly handsome.
Yes,
yeah, George
exactly.
Clooney. That's what people imagined I looked like Charlie before this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I would never have guessed that.
I was thinking George Clooney, but I couldn't think of his name, so I said Fabio.